Hello, and thank you for joining us here at Finovate Fall in New York. I'm David Penn, Research Analyst with Finovate. Joining me is Rikard Bandebo. He is the Executive Vice President and Chief Product Officer with VantageScore. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. I thought to get us started, maybe you could tell us just a little bit about yourself and the work you do with VantageScore.
I'm on the executive team at VantageScore, and I lead the product and analytics teams who are responsible for not just creating the new scores, but also for the new technologies and delivery methods that we're working on.
Very interesting. Now, people have a general sense of credit scores and so forth, but I suspect they're curious about what sets VantageScore apart from others.
Yeah, so with VantageScore 4, we went back to the drawing board in a ways to really look at what can we do to make these models much more accurate and inclusive. So as doing so, we started looking at different ways of looking at the data on the credit file. We began using what's called trended data, and we found in doing so, we were able to both improve the accuracy of the model significantly, and so it's probably one of the most accurate, if not the most accurate models, generic models that's widely adopted. Secondly, we also found that by using this type of data, we got much more consistent scores for consumers over time, because there's nothing quite as frustrating for consumers and lenders when their scores go up and down a lot over time, right? So this provides a much smoother transition throughout a consumer's history. And the third piece is that we were able to massively improve our inclusion with this latest model. So we score about 37 million more consumers than traditional generic models that are out there, of which 10 million are above 620.
Wow. So definitely touching on a lot of the things that people are talking about these days with regard to inclusion, with regard to accuracy, and again, that broad expansion of the sort of data that you look at. I'm curious, who are some of the firms that use VantageScore, and to what purpose do they put VantageScore?
So like many other models out there, it's used by a plethora of different types of institutions, but what we find is that we have over 3,000 institutions who use us. We have 9 out of the 10 top institutions, and probably as you'll see, many of the largest fintechs have been using VantageScore for some time. And we are used in a number of different ways, from originations up front when they are issuing new loans or credit cards or auto loans, for instance, to also account management at a later point. And then we've seen a lot of use in consumer education as well.
Interesting. Now, you mentioned that a lot of fintechs are using the technology as well. I'm curious, how difficult is it for a fintech that might be using some other sort of model to make the transition to VantageScore?
So, first and foremost, we are a very transparent credit scoring company. So we provide a lot of transparency into how our models work, what impacts different activities have on our models. And we also are built out a great support services around migration and also around governance. So we do a lot to make it as easy as possible for both fintechs and lenders to make a transition.
Interesting. Now, we've talked a little bit about consumers and how they can take advantage of some of this and get more appreciation for what's available. I'm curious about capital markets, rating agencies. What are some of their attitudes about VantageScore?
So we recently had FTI Consulting conduct a study where they went out and interviewed and tried to understand what the appetite was like out in the broader market, what they were looking for. And one of the common feedback that they found was that, like other markets, they're looking for more competition, and they're looking for the best models that they can use to understand the impact of different types of consumers on risk. So we've actually seen, first of all, a big uptake in VantageScore being used in general, and we're seeing now a growing appetite in the securitization markets, and we've seen some very, very large lenders transition to now offering their securities based on VantageScore.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Again, it's one of these areas that we're hearing so much about, some of the issues, again, with financial inclusion, the issues with alternative data and trying to find out more and more about sort of borrowers and things like that, creditworthiness. So it's really, really interesting to hear some of the things that VantageScore is bringing to the table these days.
Thank you.
It's great to have you. And thank you very much for joining us as well.